The blood money clinked in her stepbrother's palm, while Rose Abbott watched her entire world collapse into dust and desperation on that scorching August afternoon in 1878. Independence, California sat like a forgotten promise at the edge of the Sierra Nevada, a town where the gold rush dreams had long since faded into harsh reality and harder living. Rose stood in the dusty street outside the Mercantile, her hands trembling as Marcus, the man who had become her stepbrother when his father married her widowed mother 5 years ago, counted the bills a stranger had just placed in his calloused hand. The stranger was a rail, thin man with yellowed teeth and eyes that held nothing but cruel intent, a traveling merchant named Silas Drummond who dealt in goods Rose did not want to imagine. "You cannot do this," Rose whispered, her voice catching in her throat. At 20 years old, she had survived her father's death when she was 10, her mother's remarriage when she was 15, and her mother's death from fever just 6 months ago. But she had not expected this betrayal, not from Marcus, even though he had grown cold and distant since his father had passed away in a mining accident last spring. Marcus would not meet her eyes. "Got debts to pay, Rose. Pa left nothing but holes in the ground and promises to angry men. This way you get a roof and meals and I get to keep breathing." "You are selling me like livestock," she said, her voice rising despite her fear. Several townspeople had stopped to watch, but none moved to intervene. In Independence, people minded their business, especially when it came to family matters and especially when Marcus owed money to half the establishments in town. Drummond grabbed her arm with fingers that felt like iron bands. "Come along, girl. We have miles to cover before nightfall." Rose tried to pull away, but his grip only tightened. Panic fluttered in her chest like a trapped bird. She looked desperately at the faces around her, seeking help, finding only averted gazes and uncomfortable shuffling. Then her eyes landed on a man she had not noticed before, standing in the shadow of the livery stable across the street. He was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a dusty brown hat and a vest over a work shirt. Even from a distance, Rose could see the set of his jaw, hard and angular, and the way his gray eyes had fixed on the scene with an intensity that made something in her chest tighten. He stood utterly still, one hand resting near the revolver at his hip, watching. "Please," Rose said, not sure if she was speaking to Marcus, to Drummond, to the stranger, or to God himself. "Please do not do this." But Drummond was already dragging her toward a wagon hitched at the edge of the street, and Marcus was walking away, stuffing the money into his pocket, his shoulders hunched against the judgment Rose hoped would haunt him forever. The stranger moved then, stepping out of the shadows with a deliberate stride that made Drummond pause. Rose felt a flutter of hope, fragile as spider silk. "That is quite a transaction," the stranger said, his voice a low drawl that carried across the dusty space between them. He stopped a few feet away, thumbs hooked in his belt, his stance relaxed but his eyes sharp. "What did that cost you?" Drummond's lip curled. "None of your concern, cowboy, move along." "I am making it my concern," the stranger said. His gaze flicked to Rose, and for a moment something passed between them, a recognition of sorts, though they had never met. "How much?" "She is not for sale to you," Drummond snapped. "Already made my purchase." "Everything is for sale if the price is right," the stranger said. "That is how this works, is it not? You gave that man money, I can give you more money. Simple arithmetic." Rose's heart hammered against her ribs. She did not know this man, had no reason to trust him, but anything had to be better than the fate Drummond had planned for her. She could see it in the merchant's eyes, the same look she had seen in the eyes of men who visited the saloon girls, the same hunger that had nothing to do with food or water. $300, Drummond said, naming a sum so high it made Rose gasp. Marcus had not gotten nearly that much. The merchant was testing the stranger, certain no cowboy would carry such money. The stranger did not even blink. "Done. Let her go, and I will get your money." Drummond hesitated, his grip on Rose's arm loosening slightly. Greed warred with suspicion on his weathered face. "You have that kind of money on you?" "I have it," the stranger said. "In the bank. We can walk there right now, conduct the transaction properly with the banker as witness. Unless you would rather not have witnesses." The implication hung in the air, heavy and accusatory. Drummond's jaw worked, and Rose could see him calculating, weighing his options. Finally, he released her arm with a shove that nearly sent her stumbling. "Fine," he spat. "But if you are wasting my time, cowboy, you will regret it." The walk to the bank felt surreal, like moving through a dream. Rose stayed close to the stranger, acutely aware of his presence. The way he positioned himself between her and Drummond, the way his hand never strayed far from his gun. The townspeople watched with open curiosity now, whispers following them down the street like dust devils. Inside the bank, cool and dim after the brutal sunlight, the banker, a portly man named Chester Fairfield, looked up from his ledgers with surprise. "Mr. Quinn, did not expect to see you today. How can I help you?" "I need to make a withdrawal, Chester," the stranger said. "Quinn." So that was his name. $300. Chester's eyebrows climbed toward his receding hairline. "That is a considerable sum, Mr. Quinn. May I ask the purpose?" "Buying my freedom from a bad situation," Rose found herself saying, her voice stronger than she felt. Both men looked at her and she lifted her chin. "This man," she gestured at Drummond, "purchased me from my stepbrother. Mr. Quinn is rectifying that situation." Chester's expression darkened. He looked at Drummond with open disgust. "I see, Mr. Quinn, I will get your money. And Mr. Drummond, I will remember this. We may be rough around the edges in independence, but we are not slavers." Drummond's face flushed an ugly red. "It was a family arrangement, a contract for employment, nothing illegal about it." "Call it what you want," Chester said coldly. "Does not change what it is." The transaction took only minutes, but they felt like hours. Rose watched as Quinn counted out the bills into Drummond's eager hands, watched as the merchant recounted them twice, watched as he finally nodded and turned to leave. "If I see you in Independence again," Quinn said quietly as Drummond reached the door, "I will make sure the sheriff hears every detail of your business practices. Might be other towns would like to know too." Drummond's glare could have curdled milk, but he left without another word, the door slamming behind him. Rose released a breath she had not known she was holding, her knees suddenly weak. She gripped the edge of Chester's desk to steady herself. "Miss Abbott," Chester said gently, "are you all right? Do you need to sit down?" "I am fine," she managed, though she was not sure it was true. She looked at Quinn, really looked at him for the first time. He was perhaps 25 or 26, with dark hair that needed cutting and eyes the color of a winter sky. There was a scar on his jaw, faint but visible, and his hands were calloused from hard work. He was watching her with an expression she could not quite read, concern mixed with something else. "Thank you," she said, the words feeling wholly inadequate. "I do not know how I can ever repay you." "You do not need to repay me," Quinn said. His voice was quiet, sincere. "No person should be bought and sold like property." "But $300, Rose said. "That is a fortune." Quinn shrugged. "I have been saving for a while, was planning to expand my ranch, buy more cattle, that can wait." He paused, then added, "I am Kieran Quinn. I have a spread about 5 miles north of town, small but growing. I employ several hands, and we could use help with cooking and mending if you are looking for honest work. You would have your own room in the main house, proper wages, and no expectations beyond the work itself. Rose stared at him. You just spent $300 to free me from one man, and now you are offering me employment. Why? Kieran met her gaze steadily. Because it is the right thing to do. Because I watched my own sister get trapped in a bad situation once, and I was too young and powerless to help her. Because some things matter more than money. He hesitated, then added more softly. And because I looked at you standing there, and I saw someone fighting with everything she had, and I thought that kind of strength deserves a better chance than what you were getting. Something in Rose's chest cracked open, a painful release of tension she had been holding for so long. Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them back. She had cried enough in the past months. Now was a time for decisions, for taking control of what little she could. I am a good cook, she said. My mother taught me, and I can sew and mend and keep a house. I am not afraid of hard work. I did not think you were, Kieran said, and something that might have been a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Do you need to collect anything from where you were staying? The question brought reality crashing back. Marcus. The house that had been her mother's that Marcus now claimed as his own. I have some things, she admitted. Clothes, some personal items, but Marcus is there and I do not want to face him alone. You will not have to, Kieran said. I will come with you. They left the bank together, stepping back into the afternoon heat. The sun was beginning its descent toward the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber. Rose led the way to the small house at the edge of town, her stomach churning with a mixture of anger and dread. Marcus was sitting on the porch when they arrived, a bottle of whiskey already open beside him. He looked up as they approached, his eyes narrowing when he saw Kieran. Come to gloat? Marcus asked Rose, his words slightly slurred. I came for my things, Rose said, forcing herself to meet his gaze. I will be out of your house and your life within the hour. Fine by me, Marcus muttered. Take what is yours and go. Rose moved past him into the house, Kieran following close behind. The main room was much as she remembered, but it felt different now, tainted by Marcus's betrayal. She went to the small bedroom that had been hers since her mother remarried, gathering her few possessions. 2 dresses, some underclothes, her mother's Bible, a small wooden box containing a lock of her father's hair and her mother's wedding ring, and a shawl her grandmother had knitted years ago. Kieran helped her bundle everything into a canvas sack they found in the kitchen. His presence was steadying, a silent support that kept her from breaking down. When they emerged back onto the porch, Marcus was still there, still drinking, still not looking at her. I hope the money was worth it, Rose said, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. I hope it buys you something that fills the hole where your conscience used to be. Marcus flinched but said nothing. Rose turned her back on him and walked away, Kieran beside her, and did not look back. They walked to the livery where Kieran's horse was stabled, a sturdy chestnut gelding with kind eyes. Kieran secured Rose's bundle to the saddle, then mounted and offered her his hand. You can ride behind me, he said. It is not far to the ranch. Rose hesitated only a moment before taking his hand and letting him pull her up behind him. She settled onto the horse's back, acutely aware of the need to hold onto Kieran's waist to keep her balance. The fabric of his shirt was warm from the sun and rough under her fingers. They rode out of Independence as the sun touched the mountain peaks, gilding the world in copper light. Rose watched the town recede behind them and felt a strange mixture of relief and grief. Everything she had known was in that town, every memory of her parents, every familiar street and face. But it had also become a prison, a place where she was powerless and alone. The ranch appeared as they crested a gentle rise, nestled in a valley where a creek ran silver through the grass. The main house was modest but well built, with a wide porch and shutters painted a cheerful blue. A barn and several outbuildings stood nearby, and Rose could see cattle grazing in the distance, dark shapes against the golden grass. Two men were working near the barn as they rode up, both stopping to watch their approach with undisguised curiosity. Kieran dismounted and helped Rose down before turning to address them. "Samuel, Tom, this is Miss Rose Abbott. She will be working here as cook and housekeeper. Rose, this is Samuel Cortez and Tom Henley. They have been with me since I started this place 3 years ago." Samuel was Hispanic, probably in his 30s, with a weathered face and shrewd dark eyes. Tom was younger, maybe 22, with sandy hair and an open, friendly expression. Both tipped their hats to Rose. "Madam," Samuel said politely, "welcome to the Quinn Ranch." "Thank you," Rose said, feeling suddenly shy under their scrutiny. She wondered what Kieran would tell them, whether the whole sordid story would spread despite Chester's discretion. But Kieran simply said, "Miss Abbott will be staying in the guest room. I trust you will both treat her with the respect you would show any lady." It was not a request but a statement of fact, backed by an authority that made both men nod immediately. "Of course, boss," Tom said. "Pleased to have decent cooking again, if you do not mind me saying." Kieran's attempts at biscuits could be used as ammunition. Despite everything, Rose felt a smile tug at her lips. Kieran rolled his eyes good-naturedly. "My biscuits are not that bad," he protested. "They are exactly that bad," Samuel said solemnly. "I have considered using them to shore up the barn foundation." The easy banter helped ease some of Rose's tension. Kieran gestured toward the house. "Come on, I will show you around." The interior of the house was clean but clearly lacked a woman's touch. The main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a large fireplace at one end and a scarred wooden table surrounded by mismatched chairs. 2 doors led off the main room. Kieran opened one to reveal a small bedroom with a narrow bed, a dresser, and a window that looked out toward the mountains. "It is not much," he said, "but the mattress is good and you will have privacy. There is a lock on the door, and you are the only one with a key." He produced a small iron key from his pocket and handed it to her. "My room is on the other side of the house, and Samuel and Tom bunk in the cabin behind the barn. You are safe here, Rose. No one will bother you." Rose took the key, feeling its weight in her palm. "I believe you," she said softly. And strangely, she did. There was something fundamentally solid about Kieran Quinn, something that made her want to trust him despite every instinct that screamed caution after what Marcus had done. "I will let you get settled," Kieran said, backing toward the door. "Take your time. There is water in the pump outside, and if you are hungry, there is bread and cheese in the larder, such as it is. We usually eat supper around sundown, but do not worry about cooking tonight. You have been through enough today." After he left, Rose sat on the edge of the bed and finally let herself feel the full weight of what had happened. She had been sold by her own stepbrother, bought by a stranger, and taken to a ranch in the middle of nowhere. By all rights, she should be terrified. But instead, she felt something closer to hope, fragile and tentative but undeniably present. She unpacked her few belongings, putting them carefully in the dresser. Her mother's wedding ring she slipped onto her own finger for safekeeping, the gold band warm against her skin. The Bible she placed on the small table beside the bed. When everything was put away, she washed her face and hands with water from the pump outside, scrubbing away the dust of the road and the memory of Drummond's grip on her arm. By the time she emerged from her room, the sun had set, and lamps had been lit in the main room. Kieran was at the stove, attempting something that involved a skillet and what looked like eggs. Samuel and Tom sat at the table, watching with what appeared to be morbid fascination. "I told you I would cook," Rose said, unable to help herself. Kieran turned, looking relieved. I told you not to worry about it tonight. And I am telling you that I would rather do something useful than sit in that room thinking too much, Rose said. Besides, you are going to burn those eggs. She took the skillet from him, assessed the damage, which was not as bad as she had feared, and quickly salvaged the meal. Within minutes, she had produced scrambled eggs that were fluffy rather than rubbery, along with sliced bread and the last of the cheese. It was a simple meal, but the men ate like it was a feast. This is the best thing I have eaten in months, Tom said around a mouthful of eggs. No offense, boss. None taken, Kieran said. He was watching Rose with an expression she could not quite decipher, something that made warmth bloom in her chest. I know my limitations in the kitchen. What happened to your last cook? Rose asked, settling into the empty chair. Did not have one, Kieran admitted. When I started the ranch, it was just me. Then Samuel came looking for work, then Tom, and we have been muddling through on our own ever since. We get by, but it is not what you would call fine dining. I can see that, Rose said, eyeing the somewhat chaotic state of the kitchen area. Tomorrow I will take inventory and see what needs doing. If I am going to be cooking for 4 people, I will need to know what supplies we have. Make a list of whatever you need, Kieran said. I go into town for supplies every week or so. Next trip, I will get whatever you want. The conversation drifted to ranch matters, talk of cattle and fencing, and a problem with predators that had been killing calves. Rose listened, soaking in the rhythms of this new life, so different from everything she had known. When the meal was finished, she insisted on cleaning up, needing the familiar motions of washing dishes and tidying the kitchen to ground herself. The men drifted outside to check on the horses one last time before bed. Through the window, Rose could see them silhouetted against the star-scattered sky, their voices a low murmur. She dried the last dish and put it away, then stood for a moment, hands braced on the counter, letting herself breathe. A sound behind her made her turn. Kieran had come back inside, closing the door softly behind him. In the lamplight, his features were softer, less hard-edged than they had seemed in town. Thank you again, Rose said, for everything. Kieran shook his head. You have thanked me enough. You do not owe me gratitude for doing what any decent person should have done. But you spent so much money, Rose protested. And I would do it again, Kieran said firmly. Rose, I need you to understand something. You are not a purchase. You are not property. You are an employee, a person in your own right, and if you ever want to leave, you are free to go. I will even give you wages for travel. Rose felt tears threaten again. Why are you being so kind to me? You do not know me. Kieran was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. Finally, he said, I told you I had a sister. Her name was Margaret. When I was 16 and she was 18, our parents died of cholera. We had no other family, no money. A man offered to marry her to take care of both of us. She agreed because she thought it was the only way to keep me from ending up on the streets. He paused, his jaw tightening. He was cruel to her, beat her when she did not move fast enough, when the food was not to his liking, when the mood struck him. I tried to protect her, but I was just a kid, and he was a big man with a mean streak. When I was 17, I left to find work, planning to save enough money to get Margaret away from him. Rose could hear the pain in his voice, old but still sharp. What happened? She asked softly. I was gone 8 months, Kieran said. When I came back, I learned she had died 6 weeks earlier. Fell down the stairs, they said, but everyone knew. Everyone knew, and no one did anything. Kieran, I am so sorry, Rose whispered. I could not save her, Kieran said, meeting Rose's eyes. I was too late, too poor, too powerless. But I swore I would never be powerless again, and I would never stand by and watch someone else suffer if I could do something about it. So that is why, Rose. That is why I spent the money, why I offered you a place here. Because maybe I could not save Margaret, but I could help you. Rose crossed the space between them without thinking, reaching out to touch his arm. She would be proud of you, she said. Your sister. She would be proud of the man you became. Kieran's hand covered hers where it rested on his arm, warm and solid. I hope so, he said. I really hope so. They stood like that for a moment, connected by shared pain and tentative understanding. Then Kieran stepped back, breaking the contact gently. You should get some rest, he said. It has been a long day for you. Rose nodded, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. Good night, Kieran. Good night, Rose. She went to her room and locked the door, not because she feared Kieran, but because the action gave her a sense of control she desperately needed. She changed into her nightgown, braided her long brown hair, and climbed into bed. The mattress was comfortable, the sheets clean, and through the window she could see stars scattered like diamonds across the dark sky. For the first time since her mother had died, Rose fell asleep feeling something that resembled safety. The days that followed took on a rhythm that was both strange and comforting. Rose woke each morning before dawn to start breakfast for the men, finding satisfaction in the simple act of cooking over the large iron stove. She made biscuits that actually rose, fried bacon until it was perfectly crisp, scrambled eggs with herbs she found growing wild near the creek. The men ate with genuine appreciation, and even their compliments, which came frequently at first, settled into the quiet contentment of good food regularly prepared. After breakfast, while the men went out to their various tasks, Rose cleaned the house and took inventory of what needed mending or replacing. The curtains were faded and torn in places. The floors needed a good scrubbing. The pantry was poorly stocked and disorganized. She made lists, prioritized, and set to work. Kieran had given her a small leather pouch with money for household expenses, insisting she take it despite her protests. You cannot cook without supplies, he had said reasonably, and the house needs a woman's attention. Use what you need. Rose was careful with the money, but she used it. She bought flour and sugar, coffee and salt, dried beans and rice. She bought fabric to make new curtains and thread to mend the old clothes she found in a trunk. She bought herbs and spices that made the simple meals more interesting, and she bought little luxuries like honey and raisins that made the men smile when they appeared in biscuits or bread. The work was hard but satisfying in a way her life in independence had never been. There, she had been trapped in a house that was not truly hers, caring for a man who had no love for her. Here, she was building something, contributing in meaningful ways, and she could see the difference her presence made. The house grew cleaner and more organized. Meals became events to look forward to rather than just fuel for the day. The men began leaving their muddy boots outside without prompting, and they started washing up before coming to the table. Small changes, but they added up to a sense of home that the ranch had been lacking. Rose also found that she liked ranch life more than she had expected. She liked the openness of the land, the way the mountains stood like sentinels against the sky, the sound of the creek running over stones. She liked the animals, the horses with their soft noses and intelligent eyes, the cattle that bellowed in the distance, even the barn cats that appeared each evening hoping for scraps. And she liked the people. Samuel was quiet but kind, with a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard. He had a wife and children in a small village across the border, he told her one evening as she needed bread. He sent most of his wages home and visited when he could, missing them fiercely, but knowing the work here paid far better than anything he could find closer to home. Tom was younger and more boisterous, full of stories about growing up in Missouri and his dreams of eventually owning his own spread. He was courting a girl in town. He confided to Rose, a seamstress named Lucy who had the prettiest smile he had ever seen, but did not seem to know he existed. "You should talk to her," Rose advised, shaping the dough into loaves. "Tell her how you feel." "What if she laughs at me?" Tom asked, looking genuinely worried. "Then she is not worth your time," Rose said practically, "but I do not think she will laugh." "Women like to know when they are admired, Tom. We are not mind readers." Tom had ridden into town the following Saturday with a determination that made Samuel shake his head and Kieran hide a smile. He came back with news that Lucy had agreed to let him walk her home from church on Sunday, and his joy was infectious enough to make even Samuel crack a full grin. But it was Kieran who occupied most of Rose's thoughts, though she tried not to let it show. She was aware of him constantly, in ways both large and small. The way he moved, economical and graceful despite his size. The way his voice dropped lower when he was thinking about something serious. The way he looked at her sometimes, when he thought she was not paying attention, with an expression that made her heart skip. He was unfailingly kind to her, but also respectful of her space. He never touched her beyond what was necessary, never said anything inappropriate, never made her feel like she owed him anything beyond her work. And yet, there was something there, a pull she could not quite name, a connection that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. 2 weeks after Rose had come to the ranch, a problem with a broken fence line required all 3 men to spend several days away repairing it and moving cattle to better grazing. Rose found herself alone at the ranch for the first time, and the solitude was both peaceful and unsettling. She used the time to deep clean the house, scrubbing floors and walls, beating dust from the rugs, washing windows until they sparkled. She organized the pantry, baked bread and pies to stock up for the men's return, and even attempted to make sense of the chaotic state of what passed for Kieran's record-keeping. It was while she was sorting through papers in the small desk in the corner of the main room that she found the letter. It was old, dated 2 years earlier, written in a careful feminine hand. Rose knew she should not read it, that it was private, but her eyes caught on her own name before she could stop herself. The letter was from a woman named Catherine, apparently someone Kieran had been courting before he started the ranch. She wrote about her disappointment that he was leaving the city, her hope that he would give up his foolish dream of ranching and return to civilization, her ultimatum that she would not wait forever for him to come to his senses. At the bottom, in what appeared to be a later edition in different ink, Kieran had written a single sentence. "She married a banker. I bought my first cattle. We both got what we wanted." Rose carefully replaced the letter, feeling oddly shaken. It reminded her that Kieran had a life before she appeared, that he had loved and lost and chosen this solitary existence for his own reasons. It also made her wonder if he had room in his life for anything beyond the ranch, for feelings more complicated than the simple kindness he had shown her. The men returned on the 3rd day, tired and hungry and full of stories about a mountain lion they had spotted in the distance. Rose fed them the beef stew she had been simmering all afternoon, along with fresh bread and apple pie, and watched them revive over the meal. After Samuel and Tom had gone to their cabin, Kieran lingered at the table, nursing a cup of coffee. Rose washed dishes, aware of his presence behind her, the weight of his gaze. "House looks good," Kieran said finally. "You have been busy." "I like to keep busy," Rose said, scrubbing at a stubborn spot on a pot. "Keeps me from thinking too much." "What do you think about when you think too much?" Kieran asked softly. Rose paused, considering how much to reveal. Finally, she said, about how quickly life can change. How everything you think is solid can disappear in a moment. How you can wake up one day and not recognize your own life. I know something about that, Kieran said. He stood and came to stand beside her at the counter, picking up a towel to dry the dishes she had washed. After Margaret died, I felt like I was living someone else's life. Everything was wrong, out of focus. It took me a long time to find my footing again. How did you do it? Rose asked, genuinely curious. Find your footing, I mean. Kieran was quiet for a moment, drying a plate with careful attention. I decided what I wanted my life to be and worked toward it. Could not change the past, but I could build a future. This ranch, he gestured around them, this is what I built. It is not much yet, but it is mine. Every fence post I drove into the ground, every calf born here, every sunrise I watch from that porch, it is proof that I survived. That I took the worst thing that ever happened to me and kept going anyway. Rose set down the pot she had been washing and turned to face him. You are stronger than you know, she said. Kieran met her eyes and something passed between them, electric and undeniable. So are you, he said. You were sold like property and here you are, not broken, not defeated. You are making bread and fixing curtains and running this household like you were born to it. That is strength, Rose. I do not feel strong, Rose admitted. I feel like I am holding myself together with spit and determination. That is what strength looks like, Kieran said. It is not never being afraid or hurt. It is being afraid and hurt and getting up anyway. They stood close together in the lamplight, and Rose was acutely aware of the space between them, narrow enough to cross with a single step. She could see the flecks of darker gray in Kieran's eyes, the shadow of stubble on his jaw, the way his Adam's apple moved when he swallowed. Rose, he said, and her name on his lips sounded like a question and a prayer all at once. But whatever he might have said next was interrupted by a sharp knock on the door. They both jumped, the moment shattering like dropped glass. Kieran went to the door, his hand instinctively moving toward his gun before he checked the motion. The man on the porch was a stranger, middle-aged and well-dressed in a suit too fine for ranch country. Behind him, Rose could see a carriage waiting in the yard, the horses stamping restlessly. "Kieran Quinn?" the man asked. "That is me," Kieran said. "What can I do for you?" "My name is Howard Lansing. I represent a consortium of investors from San Francisco interested in purchasing ranch properties in this area. I would like to discuss buying your land." Rose saw Kieran stiffen. "My land is not for sale." "I understand that is the usual first response," Lansing said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "But I think you will want to hear our offer. We are prepared to be very generous." "I do not care how generous you are," Kieran said flatly. "This ranch is not for sale at any price." Lansing's smile faded. "I would encourage you to reconsider, Mr. Quinn. We are going to be purchasing most of the properties in this valley, one way or another. It would be much easier for everyone if you simply accepted our offer." The threat was thinly veiled, and Rose felt a chill run down her spine. Kieran's expression went hard as stone. "Are you threatening me?" he asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "I am simply stating facts," Lansing said. "We have significant resources and influence." "We always get what we want, Mr. Quinn. The only question is how difficult you want to make it." "Get off my property," Kieran said, "and do not come back." Lansing studied him for a long moment, then shrugged. "As you wish. But I will be seeing you again, Mr. Quinn, count on it." He returned to his carriage, and they watched as it rolled away into the darkness. Kieran closed the door with controlled force, his jaw tight with anger. "What was that about?" Rose asked. "Trouble," Kieran said shortly. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she had not seen before. There have been rumors about investors from the city trying to buy up land in the valley, but I did not think they would come here. My spread is too small to be worth their interest." "Maybe that is why they want it," Rose said slowly. "If they buy all the other properties, yours would be in the middle of their holdings. You could be a problem for them." Kieran looked at her with something like respect. "That is smart thinking. And worrying because it means they are not going to give up easily." "What will you do?" Rose asked. "What I have to," Kieran said. "This ranch is mine, and I will not let anyone take it from me. I have lost enough in my life. I will not lose this too." The determination in his voice was absolute, and Rose felt a surge of admiration mixed with worry. She had already seen what happened when powerful men wanted something and ordinary people stood in their way. Her own situation was proof of that. "Just be careful," she said. "Men like that do not fight fair." "Neither do I when it comes to protecting what is mine," Kieran said. Then, as if realizing how that sounded, he added more softly, "I will keep you safe, Rose. Whatever happens, I will not let anyone hurt you." It was a promise, and Rose believed he meant it. But she also knew that some promises were harder to keep than others, and the world had a way of taking away the